What's going on, kids? It is Dr. Remy LeBeau, and I'm coming at you once again from the X-Lair to provide you my very deep and insightful reaction to tonight's episode of The Gifted. Finally, we have the second season premiere of The Gifted. It happened tonight, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. The show itself is an X-Men show. It's a show about mutants within the X-Men world. And it's some of the best X-Men storytelling that we've seen in a while. The films themselves, they've been a mixed bag. Some of you may love the Deadpool films. I am a little bit sort of torn about them. I kind of like them. I kind of don't. The actual X-Men films have been good and bad. I did like Apocalypse. Not great, but all right. You had Days of Future Past, which is pretty cool. It was probably one of the best X-Men films. And we're supposed to get Dark Phoenix coming up. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But, the films have been a mixed bag. Legion. So here's Legion Season 1. Fell down there. Legion Season 1 is fantastic. Legion Season 2 was pretty damn good as well. I enjoyed it. If you haven't watched it, check it out. Watch my video reviews, which are also on my channel, and you'll see that it's worth checking out. It is certainly an X-Men show. Like, there's a lot of very cool X-Men elements within it, but it's really more of sort of an artistic exploration of what you can do with a television show within the superhero genre, and a little bit less of like deep dive into the X-Men lore, which is a little bit more of what this show is, which is what I really like about this show. But as a connoisseur of film and just great storytelling in general outside of comics, like Legion really does it for me. This show really does it for me as an X-Men show. And of course, I would love there to be a little bit more of a connection, a very sort of direct connection to the X-Men world with, bringing in maybe a couple of the big players, Magneto maybe, or Storm, maybe a mention of Wolverine, I don't know. But all that aside, like, I love the fact that I'm watching the show and I'm seeing Blink, and I'm seeing Thunderbird, and I'm seeing the Cuckoos, and I'm seeing Polaris, and I'm seeing the Strucker twins. Like, it's just really exciting, It's really exciting to have, like, these important characters being, like, put into, like, this really kind of well-developed context that has a pretty decent budget and overall, like, has the kind of quality that I want from my X-Men. It misses the mark a bit, but nonetheless, like, I think overall, like, it really kind of... It's such a special thing, especially for an X-Men fan. I don't know how people that aren't X-Men fans, like, I don't know how they react to the show, but I hope that they react to it well, because I do want it to keep going, and I feel like there's a lot more they could be doing with it, and I think the bigger the show gets, the more they're going to be willing to go down those, like, really exciting roads with the characters, with the world, and I really look forward to that. So this episode was all about kind of bridging us from what happened at the end of last season to the new stories that they're going to be telling this season. So I like how they started off with that Hellfire Club meeting at the beginning. That happening pretty much right after what we saw at the end of last season, where this head of the Hellfire Club, I don't exactly know her name yet. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. Her name is Anika from Empire. I watched some Empire back when she was still on it, and she was pretty cool. So I'm happy to see her here. I was hoping she would be Selene. I was hoping she would be like the Black Queen of the Hellfire Club. She appears to be a character that's been made up for the show, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the character does exist in the comics. I don't know every single X-Men character that's ever been created. And so she could quite possibly be something that's already existed within the world that we're familiar with. I like her. I like what happened during that opening scene. And I like that it sort of transitioned us into 6 months later now, where, things are sort of different than they were as a result of these new mutants being brought in. Lorna, obviously, Andy, and of course the Cuckoos finally kind of being together and being able to, take an active part in the Hellfire Club. It would have been nice to kind of understand like exactly what was going on prior, and who those other mutants were in the center of the inner circle, because they seem pretty powerful. But we got such a brief amount of time with them. It was a very brutal scene, that opening scene where the Cuckoos killed the majority of the inner circle, but shooting guns at them was the thing that I didn't necessarily love. It's like, well, you're mutants. Let's use a little mutant power, even though the head, this chick, I didn't quite catch her name. They said it once and it just didn't seem familiar, so I kind of forgot it. But she was using her powers. She appears to have some sort of sonic disruption power, which is pretty cool. But yeah, the fact that the Cuckoos were using their guns was a little bit odd to me. Nonetheless, it did do what it needed to do. Again, kind of transitioning the Hellfire Club to what it is now. And bringing us into the present, where the big thing is like the mutant underground with the Strucker parents and Blink and Eclipse and Thunderbird. They are looking for, and the Strucker girl, which I think her name is Lauren. They're looking for they're looking for Lorna and Andy, but they're also like saving mutants, which is it's great. I love that they're doing that. I love that is still sort of their mission, like sort of try to rescue mutants in need. It's an element of the X-Men world that's always kind of existed in one way or another. And so I like that that's partly the focus of what we're seeing. I don't love that it's the parents. I love Amy Acker, who plays the mom. I love her. Winifred Burkle from back in the day in Angel. She was fucking awesome. I love that fucking character. I loved everything that happened with her, and I've been in love with her ever since. And I'm a gay man, so that can tell you something about how much I love this woman. It's actually real love, and that's like some sexual flingy love. Anyway, I love her, but it's like I felt like there was just too much focus on her character, and it's like I want more mutant shit. But I love that the father is now sort of like, it appears like one of the storylines that we're going to see is like his powers finally emerging after decades of them being suppressed by whatever it was that his father gave him to suppress his mutant power. And so the question is like, what is his power going to be? How powerful is he going to be? And what are going to be the implications of him being a mutant? Like that may be like the big important element of storytelling that kind of drives the overall season. But then again, on the Hellfire Club side, it appears as though the purpose of the Hellfire Club is to set up a nation of mutants. Now, I assume they were talking about Genosha. Genosha in the comics is like this island state that was initially a place where mutants were being imprisoned, and then ultimately Magneto took it over and made a like standalone mutant state where essentially the dominant population was mutants. It was considered a sovereign country, and of course it was problematic for the world community, and there were all sorts of interesting storylines tied into that. And I kind of felt like the show was implying that was going to happen, but then we saw that vision towards the end of the Cuckoos sort of giving Lorna a view of what could be if the Hellfire Club were to work together in the way that I guess they want them to. And what we saw was like, I think the American capital that had been taken over by these mutants. And then you saw that like that double helix flag come down, kind of representing like the new iconography of this mutant nation. And so it doesn't, it could still be like Genosha, but it could be like Genosha in the US. I wish that they would do a Genosha thing at some point, and I wish that they would do a Utopia thing at some point. Utopia being the Asteroid M. Asteroid M was this other sort of attempt by Magneto to create kind of like a standalone colony of mutants, a standalone state of mutants, but it was on an asteroid in space, and then that eventually crash landed in the Bay of San Francisco, and then after M Day, which caused the population of mutants to be decimated down to about 198 mutants, the remaining mutants all kind of went to live on that island, including the X-Men, to protect themselves, because now they were like an endangered species, because with so little mutants existing in the world, like the forces that wanted to get rid of them realized, okay, we can actually make them go extinct if we focus on killing them, and so they felt they had to protect themselves, and they isolated themselves in Utopia. And I think that would be a really great story to tell as well in some medium, either film or television. But all that aside, it looks like the show is taking us in some interesting directions. I like that the main sort of focus of the show was Lorna and her baby. It's an exciting thing when I think about Lorna, because Lorna is Polaris. She is fucking powerful as fuck. She is Magneto's daughter. I like her being sort of the main focus of this entire show. If they wanted to do the entire show based on her, I'd be happy with that. And I like her being a central focus. I like that the Hellfire Club is really pulling to make sure that she is a critical part of their organization and their plans, given the nature of her powers. I like that there has been an allusion to Magneto in that symbol that was given to Lorna, and the mention by the Cuckoos last season that her father was part of the Inner Circle at one point. I like all of that. That's so fantastic, and the idea that she has now given birth to Magneto's granddaughter is very exciting to me, because that's the sort of thing that I think could lure Magneto into the fold, you know? If he finds out he has a granddaughter, like, that motherfucker's going to get on, you know, his electromagnetic spectrum and you know, get down to the to wherever this kid is, like, figure out in the electromagnetic spectrum, you know, what's causing, like, the disruptions, and therefore ultimately being able to locate the baby and Lorna if he wanted to. I would assume my science on that might be a little shaky. Nonetheless, I feel that this might be a catalyst for eventually bringing Magneto in. And wouldn't it be great if they brought in Ian McKellen as Magneto? I don't think it's going to happen, but given the fact that we've heard that Patrick Stewart is gonna have his own Picard show, hey, why not give Magneto like his own show? Like, maybe bring Magneto in and then give him like a spin-off. That'd be fucking awesome. I know I'm just speculating to a degree that I probably shouldn't, but nonetheless, I hope all that happens. Anyway, I like that, like, a lot of the ancillary extra people that were always around in the first season in the Mutant Underground are no longer there, because whenever you have that many important extras, like, some of them suck and some of them are good, and that can kind of, you know, lead to the overall quality of the show not being that great. Some of the actors in the show were not that great, even on this episode. I'm not going to mention who, but it wasn't any of the regulars. But like, I think the show is a bit ambitious, and I don't think they do a good enough job of making sure that every possible element of it is of the highest quality, which is what they do on Legion. On Legion, every element of that show is fucking of the highest quality. Every actor, like, I never see like a weird kind of like half-ass, not so great performance from any actor in that show, whether they be a fucking one-liner or, you know, one of the main characters. Like, everything is perfect on that show, and like, I don't quite get that from this show. But again, the scope of this show is so much bigger, and it's really ambitious in what they're trying to do. They're really trying to go deep and big into the X-Men world, and that's not what Legion does. Legion is very much intimate. It's about kind of keeping the elements in a very sort of intimate space, the storytelling as well as the physical spaces that are used within the show. And so there is a big difference between the shows, and that's why I can't compare them. You know, I can't say like, oh, well, you know, this one's more like, this one should be better and closer to this one, because they both have really great elements to them. Overall, Legion is a better show in terms of an artistic product. This is a better show in terms of a better X-Men show. And so they both have great qualities to them. And I'm just really happy that I'm getting a bunch of X-Men stuff. So I'm excited about it. So fuck it. Give me more of it, even if it's not of the perfect quality that I would want it to be. Like, I would love the Game of Thrones guys to be doing this show, because they would fucking knock this shit out of the park. Every aspect of it would be incredible. It would be the quality that I want it to be and the scope that I need it to be within my X-Men universe. But hey, beggars can't be choosers, and I'm happy to have this show. The Von Strucker kids, the Strucker kids, really happy with them since last season. I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen with them moving forward. I like this sort of like antagonism that exists between them now. Like, they're no longer like these close allies, and so that's an interesting element. They had Sage in the Hellfire Club. Now, they briefly had her, and they had her very briefly throughout last season as well. She's a cool character, and what's funny is that I believe her power is very similar to the power of this guy Wire that we saw, this like kind of criminal guy who like can talk to computers. Sage has a very similar power, and so it's an interesting concept to have them both in the show. I don't think Wire is a canon character, someone that actually exists in the comic book, so I wonder if we'll see more of him. The actor was actually pretty good, and so I like what happened with him and like what we saw of him. But again, I don't think he had that anchor in canon like Sage does. But he definitely did have a bigger role and even a bigger personality as well. I didn't see much personality from Sage, but we didn't see Sage much like last season. Maybe we'll see more of her later. I don't know. It would be cool to see these two characters come together though, and kind of see like what their mutant power dynamic might be. What else? The Cuckoos, man. Fucking love the Cuckoos. Like, it was such a delight to like have the reveal of them last season, and like have them like finally kind of be the full-blown Cuckoos that we know them to be from the comics. And then for that to continue on at the beginning of this season, it's such a great element. There's so many. I think the thing that really draws me to the show at this point is just, again, like the really powerful element of mutants that make up the core of the cast. Aside from like the Strucker mom, because the dad might be a really strong mutant, we don't know yet. But we've got, again, Thunderbird, Blink. We got this guy Eclipse, who's not canon, but love him. He's a great actor. He looks great, and he has great power, and he acts fantastically. So everything about him I'm loving. Thunderbird I already mentioned. You got, of course, the Strucker kids, and then on the other side you got the Cuckoos, and you got Lorna, and you got the other Strucker kid, Andy, and then of course now this new chick who is the head of the organization, which again is a mixed bag. So far, I don't quite know much about her yet. We'll see if she winds up being fucking awesome, and she probably will be. And the actress is fantastic. Will the character be fantastic? We'll find out. We'll stay tuned for that. So yeah, overall, I think the season is off to a good start. I guess the birth was it was impressive, but I feel like there was an element missing of awe in the spectacle. Like I wanted the spectacle to be bigger, because like when you open up a season, like you really gotta throw all your guns at people. Like you gotta break out your whole arsenal, and it just didn't feel like the exhibition of powers was at the scale that I would want it to be. Like starting off a season to really kind of like not draw me in, because hey, I'm in, but draw in the average viewer. Hopefully, like eventually we'll see an escalation of it. The direction of the show, like the actual directing that went on, and the overall production was okay. I saw some like weird cuts and like, I don't know, there were a lot of elements, a lot of weird shots that it's just not the sort of thing you see on Legion. Legion is such a perfectly crafted show. Every shot is important. Every element of every shot is important. That's not the case here. But I do like that in the Hellfire Club headquarters, that there's a bunch of X's now. in the sort of decor, which is like them taking a page out of Legion's book, but really out of like the original production design of like the X Mansion and all the other a lot of the important settings that we saw in the original X-Men films. But we didn't see any of that in season 1 of this show. Now we're getting a little bit of that, which is good. You know, just kind of like giving me a little bit of that iconography of the X-Men, just kind of, you know, nicely woven into the composition of the shots, the backgrounds. The more of that, the better. Hopefully that gets escalated. I want to see though, like I want to see an episode of this show that's not just great because of the characters and because of the fact that it's the X-Men world. I want to see an episode of the show that's just like amazing fucking storytelling and filmmaking. That's what I want to see. I've yet to see that. I've yet to see that. Even though Bryan Singer directed the first episode of the first show, I didn't see it there. And so hopefully we'll see it eventually. We'll see. But all that is me just like wanting things to be perfect at the ideal level. In reality, it's pretty fucking good, and I'm really happy with it. And so I'm looking forward to what's going to happen this season, and I'm looking forward to share my thoughts with you guys about what may happen this season. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Thanks for checking out my thoughts. If you like what you saw and you're not subscribed, click that little button down there under the screen. Says subscribe. Keep up with my videos. I'll be talking X-Men. I'll be talking Marvel. I'll be talking. And I do want to mention that everything going on with the X-Men right now, in terms of like the business stuff, the fact that Disney is finally going to acquire Fox, and they're finally going to be able to incorporate the X-Men into the cinematic universe, like, and the fact that there's these other films kind of in limbo, Dark Phoenix and New Mutants, all that stuff is interesting for me as a fan of the X-Men. I feel that Fox has done them wrong all these years, and so I am really excited about this. The fact that Marvel is going to be taken over, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what that's going to lead to. And I really would have no problem with them scrapping these films and never releasing them, and just letting Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Creative, just incorporate the X-Men into the universe, reboot the whole thing, and have it finally be represented in the way that it should have been represented from the beginning, because that's what the X-Men deserve. The X-Men are part of the Marvel Universe. They are part of that fabric. And by taking them out and giving them their own world and making them sort of like their own kind of standalone entities, kind of trying to redefine them as their own thing, it just didn't work. It just did not work. I mean, there were some good films in there, without a doubt. X2 is fantastic. Days of Future Past, fantastic. Logan's pretty good. I like Logan a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of good that's been done, but nonetheless, like, there's also been a lot of bad. Deadpool was fun, but it's not, in my mind, a great movie. And like the fact that they have these other representations of these characters coexisting in the universe, two different colossi. Is that the plural of Colossus? I hope so. Two different Colossuses, and like this kind of weird portrayal of Cable. I kind of liked it, but I kind of did not, because he was made into sort of he was subordinated to the Deadpool story, and like, dude, like, you can't do that to Cable, and you can't tell his story, like his backstory, in the way they did. They mentioned fucking Hope, and they just kind of like wrote her off. They fucking talked about the way they represented Juggernaut is, for me, twice a miss. Two misses in the representation of fucking Juggernaut. I don't want to go on talking about it because it just gets me mad. Juggernaut is fucking pissed about the way he's been represented in those fucking films. Not to say that I didn't like Deadpool 2, because like, I got it right here, I bought it. I'm going to watch it every now and then, so don't worry. All right? It's fun. Like, these Deadpool films are fun, but like, they are certainly not, as a whole, giving us what we need in a cinematic universe of the X-Men. Like, it's just not happening. Fox doesn't give a fuck about creating a unified universe. Like, you can do it like they're doing it in Marvel, and still have like standalone stories and give a lot of importance to the individual characters and their individual stories outside of the big crossovers. Like, you can do it, and Kevin Feige has proven that. And it's just, the world of the X-Men is ripe for that, and yet it has not happened. And even after Marvel demonstrated how easy it is to do that, if you give it the right amount of resources and you allow creative folks to just kind of do their thing and have someone guiding the ship that actually cares about the stories and the characters, if you have all that going for you, you're going to be a success. And Marvel knew that that was possible and still didn't do it, and still fucking, had Days of Future Past, which is great, and then had this Apocalypse, which there's a lot of elements of Apocalypse I like, but like the representation of Apocalypse sucked. And then they had like Logan, which like apparently does not exist in the same continuity as like Days of Future Past, which is like, well, why? Why doesn't it? I don't know. I can talk forever about this shit, and I know you don't want me to talk forever about this shit, because now I'm no longer talking about The Gifted, and you didn't come here to hear my thoughts on everything but The Gifted, even though I did give you enough of my gifted thoughts tonight. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video, and I'll be back next week. So as always, I want to remind you that if you haven't already, you better put an X in that box, ladies and gentlemen, because ain't nobody checking me. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.